Hello mind mappers and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over Principles by Ray Dalio, one of the most successful people of our generation. This book is also recommended by Bill Gates and Tony Robbins. I don't think it needs much more introduction. Today we're going to be going over principles that have helped Ray in life. Now this book is kind of a mix of principles in business and a mix of principles in life, but I covered mostly life principles in this one. Perhaps we'll go over a mind map on the business principles at another day, but for now we're going to get directly into the introduction. And what I've done here is pulled out a quote that I believe gives us a good overview of what we can expect to learn today. And Ray starts this at the beginning of the book. He says, "Before I begin telling you what I think, I want to establish that I'm dumb, someone who doesn't know much relative to what I need to know. Whatever success I've had in life has more to do with my knowing how to deal with not knowing rather than anything that I actually know. The most important thing that I've learned is an approach to life based on principles that help me find out what's true and what to do about it." That's really what we're doing today, is developing principles, understanding principles that help us find out what's true and then also help us determine what to do about it. I'm passing along these principles because I am now at the stage in my life in which I want to help others be successful rather than be more successful myself. Because these principles have helped me and others so much, I want to share them with you. It's up to you to decide how valuable they really are and what, if anything, you want to do with them. Now, I think this passage is actually more valuable than it kind of leads on. I think that it's very few and far in between that the author of a book doesn't actually have any ulterior motive. See, Ray is one of the 100 wealthiest people in the entire world. It doesn't matter to him how many books are bought, although quite a few books have been sold. It's not important to him how many of them are actually bought and how much money gets into his bank account because of these books sold. He really just wants to kind of share the knowledge that he's learned along the journey. I think that's a very powerful person to learn from. Of course, he's, again, one of the most financially successful people alive today. And he's running one of the most successful companies in modern history, as well as being incredibly influential. In my opinion, that makes Ray a great person to listen to when it comes to a lot of different things. But number one, accomplishing what we set out to do with our lives. Of course, he's been at the very height of accomplishment and reached a lot of the goals that he set for himself, although I'm sure there was a lot of bumps along the way. Becoming successful in almost any domain, finance and financial independence in business, is one of the most complex and competitive domains there are. So there's a lot to learn from Ray in that respect. Also leading people and understanding how they tick. Really, as this kind of business manager, this hedge fund manager, Ray had to learn a lot about how people tick, understanding and dealing with people and leading them in a way that makes everyone in the room more successful for him being the leader. Inside, we're going to learn, as Ray describes it, fundamental truths that serve as the foundation for behavior that gets you what you want in your life. They can be applied again and again in similar situations to help you achieve your goals. Now, these principles, if you learn and remember them, are something that you can fall back on during times of decision, or perhaps even better stated, in times of indecision. They're aimed at making your life a little easier and more effective by learning from those that have come before you. Again, that's something that this channel is really all about. These books, we're trying to learn from other people in order to make our lives more successful. This book, of course, if you've seen it, is huge, and it's packed with a ton of amazing wisdom coming from Ray's life. Again, I've really kind of pulled out not the autobiography part, not the business part, but the how can we make our lives better part. I recommend that you pick this one up. It's a very in-depth book, but I find myself kind of going back to it again and again and again to find different principles and look at different principles from different perspectives and try and figure out how I can use them in my life today. With that, we're going to move into mind mapping. If you want to get the most out of these mind maps, you can do it by following along. Find the process of not only how I mind map, but you can also get all of the mind map templates that are on this channel, all at the link in the description down below. Following along is going to help you learn more, remember better, and of course, apply these books to your life, which is really the name of the game. Now, the first big idea that we pulled out here is big goals plus fail well. The quote goes like this: I learned my principles over a lifetime of making a lot of mistakes and spending a lot of time reflecting on them. Now, that's really how we all learn. I wish it wasn't the way that we all learn, but it seems like mistakes are often our biggest learning opportunities. Ray says that since I was a kid, I've been curious, independent thinker who ran after audacious goals. I got excited about visualizing things to go after, had some painful failures going after them, learned principles that would prevent me from making the same sort of mistakes again, and changed and improved, which allowed me to imagine and go after even more audacious goals and do that rapidly and repeatedly for a long time. I believe that the key to success lies in knowing how to both strive for a lot and to fail well. By failing well, I mean being able to experience painful failures that provide big learnings without failing badly enough to get knocked out of the game. I think that final sentence is something very interesting. Ray's kind of looking at this whole business world, this whole life thing, really as a game. And that's how I prefer to see it as well. Life is a heck of a lot more fun when you treat it like a game rather than kind of the life and death situation that it really is. The key to success, it says inside this quote, is striving for a lot and failing well. This is what Dalio has to say about his failures. He says, over the years that followed, I found the most of the extraordinarily successful people I've met had similar big painful failures that taught them the lessons that they ultimately needed to help them succeed. Looking back on getting fired from Apple in 1985, Steve Jobs said, it was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. I saw that to do exceptionally well, you have to push your limits, and that if you push your limits, you will crash and it will hurt a lot. You will think you have failed. But that won't be true unless, of course, you give up. Believe it or not, your pain will fade, and you will have many other opportunities ahead of you, though you might not see it at the time. I think a lot of us have been there and can relate to this. The most important thing you can do is to gather the lessons these failures provide and gain humility and radical open-mindedness in order to increase your chances of success. And then you press on. So the model of setting goals, failing, learning, improving, and setting even bigger goals. It really is an interesting little model that we have inside of the book here. You can see that we kind of start down here. We set these audacious goals and we start going into the cycle. We hit a failure and we start to kind of get on this downward trajectory, not only just in business, but kind of mentally as well. But then if you can kind of turn this failure around, if we want to get started turning this failure around, we have to think, okay, what can I learn? What can I learn from this failure? What can this teach me? And I think what happens is a lot of the time we just kind of set these audacious goals. We hit the failure. We don't learn. We don't learn. We don't learn. We don't learn. We keep going down and down and down. And then we set another audacious goal. And the cycle never really kind of perpetuates itself upwards. It just kind of keeps hitting this peak and valley, peak and valley, peak and valley. And that's very, very frustrating because you can't build upon your failures. You can only set your sights on something new. So again, you want to kind of set this audacious goal, move through the failure that's inevitable to happen with this audacious goal that you've set, learn why the failure happened, start the improvement, and boom, you've started kind of this upward trajectory again. Quick note, of course, it's a beautiful illustration. It looks way easier than it actually is. The process can be quite painful. As Steve Jobs said up here, it's like getting hit in the head with a brick. Of course, not very fun. This to me encompasses a mantra that I have recently adopted. Action creates clarity. So I set these big audacious goals and kind of one of two things happens. Number one, I set the big audacious goals and I don't go after them. And of course, I stay in the same spot and I don't move anywhere. Or number two, I set these big audacious goals and failure happens. Of course, failure happens. And why? Why does failure happen? often because I don't have clarity around what I'm trying to actually accomplish. And this failure, learning, improving process is really just a process of gaining more clarity and gaining better tools in order to actually accomplish and achieve something. See, when we're setting goals, we never have all of the information. It's literally impossible. So we need to prepare for the fact that we're likely going to fail along the way. And this is just a mental preparation. This is a physical preparation. This is a business preparation, right? Never putting all the chips on one number, never making too big a bet that we can't come back from. So we need to make sure that we're putting all of those things into place when we're setting kind of these big, audacious goals. And then once we have these failures, they give us more clarity around what we're trying to accomplish. Of course, then allows us to improve. It allows us to increase our strategy and improve our strategy, increase our resilience, or even to find the right help. Kind of knowing what we don't know is a big important of the process, a big important piece of the process as well. So next we're going to move into meaning. I think this is a really important point. This is maybe one of the most important points in the entire book for me. Ray says that while making money was good, having meaningful work and meaningful relationships was far better. And it's something that we hear all the time, so much that it's almost a cliche. I'm of the belief that if something is a cliche, it must be true, because it's been said so many times that it has to be true. So many times it's repeated and repeated and repeated, it must be true. Ray continues on, he says, to me, meaningful work is being on a mission I become engrossed in. And meaningful relationships are those that I have with people that I care about deeply and who care deeply about me. Think about it. It's senseless to have making money as your goal, as money has no actual intrinsic value. Its value comes from what it can buy, and what it can't buy is everything. It's smarter to start with what you really want, which are your real goals, and then work back to what you need to attain them. Money will be one of the things that you need, but it's not the only thing, and certainly not the most important. Once you get past having the amount of money that you need, you can get what you really want. When thinking about things you really want, it pays to think about their relative values so you weigh them properly. In my case, I wanted meaningful work and meaningful relationships equally, and I valued money less. That's interesting. Coming from one of the world's richest people. He valued money less than having this meaningful work and meaningful relationships. I think we'll dive a little deeper into that later. As long as I had enough to take care of my basic needs, in thinking about the relative importance of great relationships and money, it was clear that relationships were more important because there is no amount of money I would take in exchange for a meaningful relationship. Because there is nothing I can buy with that money that could be more valuable. So you can see how he's kind of weighing these two different things in his mind. So for me, meaningful work and meaningful relationships were and still are primary goals, and everything I did was for them. Making money was an incidental consequence of that. And I think this is a very interesting way to think about money, right? It's buying you things. I think a lot of times we can kind of be sucked into the game of money. And even though I said living life as a game is kind of a more fun way to live life, which I totally still agree with, I would say that money isn't the only measurement inside of the game, right? We need to be careful making money the only measurement, or maybe stated a different way, is making money the default measurement. So money isn't everything. Might sound a little rich coming from one of the world's 100 wealthiest people. But I think there's a lot we can learn about the things that we chase in life. Most of us spend our lives working towards something. Of course, most of us spend our lives working towards multiple different things, but we all spend our lives working towards something. What Ray is really saying here is Stephen Covey's idea of beginning with the end in mind. And I think this is really what he's talking about. He's saying, okay, I want meaningful work and I want meaningful relationships. Those are kind of my two core things. Yours might be a little different. But really the most important thing here is those two things for me. That meaningful work, that meaningful relationship. Along the way, of course, yes, I'm going to need some money. But I began with the end in mind. First, I must realize, okay, I need meaningful relationships. I need meaningful work to make me feel like a full human being. That's really figuring out what is important to you and make that thing the thing that you're working towards. Don't let money be just the de facto measurement as it so much becomes in our kind of materialistic world. Next, I want to talk about the concept of ikigai. It's actually something that we've done a book review on, and I've also done a book review on Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, so I recommend that you go and check both of these two things out. But ikigai is a Japanese concept that essentially means reason for being. And I think it's really a good illustration for the good life and really close to what Ray is talking about here. So ikigai has 4 main circles. It has what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And in the middle of these Venn diagrams, in the middle of these circles, where they overlap is ikigai. And this is when you have a combination of what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. That's really what we're looking for, right? Money is not the most important part. So many people focus on the blue circle of what they can be paid for. And they almost completely neglect what they love. They almost completely neglect what the world needs and what they're good at. But it's in my mind that if we can combine all 4 of these circles together, not only are we going to lead a wealthier life, but we're going to lead one that's happier and more fulfilling as well, because we're giving the world what they need, we're doing what we love, and we're kind of matching our skill level. So we've got a little bit of flow in there by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi as well. When I first learned about ikigai, a little bit of a story. I was in the position that a lot of people find themselves in this life. I was successful in business with a relatively high monthly income. I say relatively because I'm talking about Ray Dalio here today. But I was hitting a wall mentally and emotionally where I realized that I just didn't love the work that I was doing anymore. Someone I hold pretty dearly introduced me to this concept of ikigai, and I read the book after that. But since that day, I've been using my entrepreneurship skills to build a life full of ikigai for myself, instead of using money as a measuring stick as I have in the past. See, in the past, I was stuck in the blue circle. I learned marketing, I learned sales, I learned persuasion. I learned all these things that increased the blue circle, increased the number of things that I could be paid for. But I never really thought about what was I naturally good at, which was taking complex ideas and making them a little simpler. What I love, which is reading and learning from these amazing people that have poured their lives into a book. And what the world needs, which is less fake gurus and more people that are out here like Ray Dalio, like myself, who are really just trying to spread good information to help people along the way. That's my ikigai. I recommend that you take some time and meditate on and ponder what your ikigai might be. And keep in mind as well that ikigai, you don't have to hit the bullseye. If you can get a little bit closer to what you love, a little bit closer to what you're good at, a little bit closer to what you can be paid for, and a little bit closer to what the world needs, you're well on your way. Next, we're going to talk about shapers. Then I spoke with proven shapers I knew. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Reed Hastings, Muhammad Yunus, Jeffrey Canada, Jack Dorsey, David Kelly, and more. They had all visualized remarkable concepts and built organizations to actualize them, and done that repeatedly and repeatedly over long periods of time. It turns out that these people had a lot in common. They are all independent thinkers who do not let anything or anyone stand in the way of achieving their audacious goals. They have very strong mental maps of how things should be done, and at the same time, a willingness to test those mental maps in the world of reality and change the ways they do things to make them work better. They are extremely resilient because their need to achieve what they envision is stronger than the pain they experience as they struggle to achieve it. Perhaps most interesting, they have a wider range of vision than most people, either because they have that vision themselves or because they know how to get it from other people who can see what they can't. All are able to see both the big picture and the granular details in all levels in between, and they synthesize the perspectives they gain at all those different levels. They are simultaneously creative, systematic, and practical. They are all assertive and open-minded at the same time. Above all, they are passionate about what they are doing, intolerant of people who work for them who aren't excellent at what they do, and want to have a big and beneficial impact on the world. I mean, can you see Ikigai inside of all of these shapers as well? I think Ikigai is really what we're trying to get at here. Again, I recommend you go and check out this video. Of course, Principles is a really great book. It's a really good perspective shift, but this is the principle of Ikigai underlying this. So what traits can we learn from Dalio's shapers? I took a little bit of a different spin on this, and I decided to say, okay, what can we learn from these people? These are really great people, high-level people. What can we learn from them? First, I think that we must recognize that they all have a few specific traits in common. Some of the ones that Dalio kind of pointed out are independent thinking, they're experimental, they're resilient, they have a wide vision, they're creative, practical, and open-minded. All great things, all great traits to have not only in business but in life. So how might we be a little bit more like these shapers? Well, I am of the belief that we all already have these traits within us. But these people, for whatever reason, are really great at leveraging and letting theirs kind of shine through. Below, we're going to list some journaling questions you can use to identify these traits within yourself and amplify them to help you be successful. And I would change the word amplify to allow, right? I think that you have a lot of these traits already, but we need to set the stage, create the environment for you to allow them to come through you. So here are some of the journaling questions. Independent thinking. What do you believe that others don't? What are 3 ideas that you think could change the world? Experimental. When was the last time you were nervous about something and you actually did the thing? What test can you run right now to test something on your mind? Resilience. Reflect on a time that you endured something and were rewarded. Who is someone that you admire for their resilience? David Goggins comes to mind for me. Wide vision. What are 3 industries outside your career that fascinate you? Can you find 3 people outside your field who you think are geniuses? These are all questions you can be following along inside of the mind map or write them down. Come up with 10 ideas. What are those ideas going to be for? Could be for anything. Write 3 pages on anything. Start a fiction book. Don't let the pen stop. Flex that creative muscle. Practical. How could you make $10 extra by the end of the day? Where are you losing energy and how could you fix that? Open-mindedness. Name someone that you disagree with. What is something that you've changed your mind on in the last 3 months? Again, I think that's a great exercise to go through, write down some answers to those questions, and perhaps even revisit this every month, every 3 months, something like that, to just kind of remind yourself of the traits and remind yourself how you're embodying them. I'm really kind of fascinated with this idea of journaling and how instead of forcing ourselves into a particular mode of thinking, we can use journaling to uncover that mode in ourselves already. And in doing that, it really kind of allows us to bring that mode or that trait forward in our lives rather than forcing ourselves to think a particular way. Our next point is embrace. Learning how reality works, visualizing the things I want to create, and then building them out is incredibly exciting for me, Dalio says. Stretching for big goals puts me in the position of failing and needing to learn and come up with new inventions in order to move forward. I find it exhilarating, being caught up in the feedback loop of rapid learning. Just as a surfer loves riding a wave, even though sometimes it leads to crashes, don't get me wrong, I'm still scared of the crashes, and I still find them painful. It's the brick in the head that Steve Jobs talked about before. It probably never gets easier. But I keep that pain in perspective, knowing that I will get through these setbacks and that most of my learning will come from reflecting on them. Just as long-distance runners push through pain to experience the pleasure of the runner's high, I have largely gotten past the pain of my mistake making, and instead enjoy the pleasure that comes with learning from it. Instead, I enjoy the pleasure that comes learning from it. I believe that with practice, you can change your habits and experience the same mistake learner's high. So we're talking about a running high before, and now we're thinking, okay, mistake learner's high. When I make a mistake, how can I get excited about that mistake? How can I get excited about learning from that mistake? So following in love with failure, mistakes, and of course, with learning. Often when we're starting something new, we're afraid to fail. I don't think that's the wrong thing to do. In fact, a little bit of fear and stress about failing probably makes us that much better. The problem is not the fear, but the paralysis that sometimes comes along with it. So learning to embrace the failure, embrace the fear, and the need to learn something new is really the key here. Failure gives us the most information. Every time we win, we get a little further ahead, but we don't get a ton of information. Every time we fail, we might have to take a step back, but we get more perspective. Fear can give us a little bit of motivation. The fear of not wanting to fail, the fear of looking silly. It can allow us to kind of tap into an unused source of motivation and energy. Most of the time we look at fear as being a bad thing, but fear can sometimes be a good thing. Heightens the senses. And learning, of course, allows us to become better. We can learn from our failures and we can learn from other people's failures, as Warren Buffett would tell us to do. But of course, we need to learn how to overcome fear and how to learn from our failures. Here's a little step-by-step process that I put together for us. I think there has to be a little push the bird out of the nest, but it doesn't have to be from the top of the tree. Identify something small that you can experiment with. Remember that trait that those shapers had before, that experimenter's mindset? This experiment is going to give us the ability to shrink the fear, get momentum, and fail small so we can immediately learn something new. So we're kind of encompassing all three things into one small experiment. Here are a couple examples. Are you thinking about making a YouTube video? Simply write a script and read it out loud. Don't do it in front of the camera. Don't post it on YouTube. Just write the script and read it out loud. Are you thinking of starting a new business? Get someone to pay you $1 for what you're expecting to deliver. Whether it's a product, whether it's a service, get someone to pay you $1 for what you plan to do. Wondering if a career change might be right for you? Potentially ask someone to shadow them for a day or 2 days, someone who does the job already that you're thinking about switching into. You might learn more in that one day than you would in a whole entire year at college. You might decide that you didn't want that job, or you might decide on doubling down that this job is the exact one for you. All of those are small experiments. I first came across that idea of small experiments when I was reading a book by Nassim Taleb, and the one that I was reading escapes my memory right now. I believe it was Black Swan, where he talks about kind of diversifying. And my idea was, okay, instead of starting one business, I'm going to start 10 businesses. And that's actually what I did. I started 10 different businesses with one small step each. And if the one small step was successful, then I could move it into the next round of kind of small steps. And eventually, slowly but surely, that's how I came up with my marketing business, how I came up with the right clients and customers to actually go after, is this kind of series of diversification, small little steps, and moving on the ones that were already successful, learning from the failure, so to speak. So here we go, 5 steps. This is maybe the most important point of the entire video. I've highlighted it in red here. I think you should burn this one into your mind. It's a really, really, really important concept here to learn from Ray Dalio. It seems to me that the personal evolutionary process, the looping that we described in the last chapter, which was up here in that diagram that we talked about, takes place in 5 distinct steps. If you can do all those 5 things well, you'll most certainly be successful. Here they are in a nutshell. Number 1, you must have clear goals. Number 2, you have to identify and don't tolerate the problems that stand in the way of you achieving those goals. Number 3, accurately diagnose the problems to get at the root cause. Number 4 is design plans that will help you get around them. Number 5 is do what's necessary to push these designs through to results. It's a great 5-step process. It sounds a little familiar, as we'll talk about in a minute. Do you want to evolve as a person? Follow, of course, these 5 steps that we talked about before. What are these 5 steps? Well, really, they're a model. Something to follow to make success more likely. This model is favored by Ray, and I think is a very good one. Actually, it's similar to a model that we've read in another book, which is Rethinking Positive Thinking by Gabriel Oettingen, which is the WOOP model. WOOP, which is wish, or have clear goals, outcome, have clear goals again, obstacles, what's standing in my way, and plan, which is design plans that'll help you get around them. And then, of course, Ray adds in number 5, do what's necessary to push these designs through to results. I really love both models. Gabriel Oettingen's is backed up by science, and Ray Dalio's is backed up by success. So let's get a little clear about each of these with some resources. What's your number 1 goal right now? It's a good question to ask yourself. Write it down on a piece of paper, follow along in the mind map. What problems are you facing in relation to that goal? What things are you bumping up against? What obstacles might be in your way in order to accomplish this thing? Diagnose the problem. What specifically isn't working? What have you tried? What have you learned? What haven't you tried? What might you try next? Design a solution to the problem. What's the plan? That's what you might try next, I guess. And get out there and do it. Follow the steps. Here we go. I'm going to show you a little bit about mine, and we'll move on to our final point. My kind of what's my number 1 goal right now is continue to impact people through my YouTube channel, aiming for 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Channel growth is a little slower than it needs to be to hit that goal. That's the problem that I'm facing right now. Diagnose the problem. I believe that retention isn't high enough on my videos, which is resulting from the reason that that's not happening is a lower quality output on my side. So I need to get better and give more value in each of these videos. That's kind of the solution that I've designed for the problem. And to do that, I'm going to double the time that I put into a video and focus on helping people versus trying to sell coaching services. So here I am, one of the most in-depth videos I have ever done on this channel, with my heart and soul on the line. This is one of the longest videos that I'm going to do on the channel. It's also one of the ones that I've poured the most time and energy into. If you're all the way at the end here, I hope you're enjoying, and I want to hear what your 5 steps are. Comment them down below. Let me know what your 5 steps are. I would love to hear from you. Moving into our final point, which is AI. The concept of artificial intelligence is not new. Even back in the 1970s, when I first started experimenting with computerized decision-making, it had already been around for nearly 20 years. The term artificial intelligence was first introduced in 1956 at a conference at Dartmouth College. While a lot has changed since then, the basic concepts remain the same. To give you just one ultra-simple example of how computerized decision-making works, let's say you have 2 principles for heating your home. You want to turn the heat on when the temperature falls below 68, and you want to turn the heat off between midnight and 5 a.m. You can express the relationship between these criteria in a simple decision-making formula. If the temperature is 68 degrees, is less than 68 degrees, and the time is not between 5 a.m. and midnight, then turn on the heat. By gathering many such formulas, it's possible to create a decision-making system that takes in data, applies and weighs the relevant criteria, and recommends a decision. So this is really just kind of a simple algorithm, and it's all about learning how to make decisions. Dalio, of course, made a lot of money with AI. He integrated a ton of historical data with artificial intelligence, and that helped him and his firm make decisions on investments. Most of us probably can't learn a ton from that in particular because we're not in the same field. But what can we learn from this? First, I think we can learn that history is important. So many people kind of neglect history altogether, but it's not just history on a grand scale that we're talking about, although that's important too, but it's really about your own history and your history. Things like how you perform under pressure, how you feel when you eat a certain way, what time of day works you work the best at. These are all important things to know about, and you want to know them about yourself. Make sure you record them. Kind of a journaling practice, a meditation practice will help you find a lot of these things. Checking in with yourself on a regular basis can help you find how you're feeling in certain situations. Second, I think we can learn how simple AI really can be and how we can use it in our own lives. It's kind of a two-step process. Again, we're going to quote Rethinking Positive Thinking. Gabrielle talks about IFTT, if this, then that. Ray says here that if our thermostat goes over a certain number, we need to turn on the AC, and vice versa. Basically, AI is a really complex multi-channel IFTT. So how can we combine these two concepts together? Well, really, first we need to think about our history. Using our own history, we can create an IFTT statement for ourselves. Here's an example for you. So if I feel pressure to perform, or if I feel pressure when I'm talking in front of a group of people or something like that, I will excuse myself and try to deep breathe for 2 minutes. So if I feel X, I will perform Y. The next one could be, I will continue to only eat when I'm satisfied and not full. You know that your energy levels go way down if you eat until you're overstuffed. So if you feel full, you will stop eating. That's essentially the IFTT statement there. I will get up at 5 a.m. each day and get directly into my creative work, as that's when I'm at my best. This is how we can use the power of history and AI in our own lives. I recommend that you take some time and look at a couple different areas of your life, maybe health, wealth, love, happiness. These different areas are going to really help you kind of zone in. What IFTT or AI or if this then that statements can you create for those areas of your life? What has history looked like? When do you feel like you're at your best? All those things are very, very important, and it can make your life a heck of a lot easier if you use AI to make your decisions rather than use yourself. Thanks so much for being with me here today. Now, if you are at the end of the video, I'm going to give you kind of a special invitation. This isn't at the beginning of the video simply because I only want people that have really taken in the information. If you want to get on a call and you want to talk about this book in particular, you want to talk about something else that you have going on in your life, you want to set some better goals, or you want to find your purpose, click the link down below. There's a free coaching link down in the description. Again, I don't want everyone to be clicking on this link because it got a little overwhelming there for a while. But if you're watching to the end of the video, I want you to click this link because I know that we are going to connect on a very deep level, and I want to take you a little bit further into my thinking, a little bit further into my thought process. I would really be happy to have you join me. That being said, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for being with me here today.